remember that last year we ran a few kind of online sessions for us as a group. Today's session is specifically for secondary educators, for those of us who work with secondary schools. We're planning, I've been talking to Mary Jane this morning, and we're planning another one in February, which will be for the whole learning and engagement team. So it'll be, you know, much broader. So it's to vary it a bit according to that sort of target audience. But today is specifically about talking about our provision for secondary schools. And it's about, I suppose, revisiting, you know, what are our aims? What are we wanting to achieve? In doing what we're doing, are we achieving those aims, or should we be doing something different? You know, should we be tweaking our offer? But I think it'd be quite useful, firstly, just to kind of introduce ourselves, because I know most people here, but not everybody. So are we all right if we start with Alison? If you just briefly sort of introduce yourself, tell me where you're from, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
No worries. Hi everyone, I'm Ali. I'm the Education and Inclusion Advisor at Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park Authority.
Thank you. And Joanne?
Hi, I'm the Assistant Learning Officer at Northumberland National Park.
Thank you. And Andy?
Hi, yeah, I'm Andy Bailey. I'm part of the Outreach and Understanding team at Dartmoor National Park.
I like that, outreach and understanding. Is that your
Yeah.
official title here? Okay, nice.
Cool,
Heather?
Hi, Heather McNiff, North York Moors, Head of Outdoor Learning and Engagement.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine Kemp. I'm Education and Engagement Manager at the Yorkshire Dales National Park.
And Amanda?
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Rams. I'm the Learning Outreach and Volunteer Lead at the South Downs National Park. In a previous life, I was a secondary geography and maths teacher in North London, so I'm interested in this.
Lucky you. Simon?
Hi there, Simon Ashmore, Youth Engagement Officer with the Yorkshire Dales National Park.
And Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm the Learning Officer at Northumberland National Park.
Northumberland, thank you. And I'm Rebecca Swift, and my role is I'm the Education Officer at North Yorkshire. Most of you are probably aware that a couple of weeks ago, quite a few of us were in Exmoor for the National Park UK conference. If you weren't aware of that, it would be, I think, is it Snowdonia possibly next year, Heather? Similar sort of time of year, so kind of look out. Look out for that, but really valuable sort of networking opportunity. But one of the things we didn't really talk about there was secondary provision, and I'm just going to share my screen with you because I just give you an idea about what I want us to talk about tonight, if that's all right. So I think it's useful just to start off by thinking, what outcomes are we actually wanting from our provision for secondary schools? I mean, this was mine that I've just kind of thrown together quickly. So it's just, if anybody wants to add anything to this. So, you know, do you agree with me? Anything that you would question? So our secondary school provision, are we wanting young people to enjoy and value the natural world? They're more proactively engaged within the environment and environmental issues, have the knowledge and skills to make a difference to the environment and be advocates for it, and understand the role and the importance of national parks. Is there anything you would add to that about what outcomes we as national parks would want from our secondary education provision? Chip in if you've got anything to say. Just.
Is there something to add around pathways to green employment, the sort of careers and skills bit? I like your list. I think it's really good.
Yeah, pathways to green employment. Yeah, thank you very much. Anything else?
Yeah, would we chuck in becoming independent visitors to the national park in the future?
Yeah.
Or does that really go with that better engagement?
No, I think we can add that in. I can tweak. I think that's important. Anything else, or anything that you don't agree that I've put down there?
I was just going to say something about advocating for their conservation. It's all about youth voice, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Last call.
I don't know whether it's relevant to go in here, but we our recent big school survey, even with secondaries, was picking up health and well-being and the importance of nature in that.
Yeah. So is that for our outcomes? How would you summarise that then for what we would want to see from our sessions with secondary schools? That young people are reporting improved health and well-being?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Or supporting young people with their health, with positive health and well-being through connection with nature, something like that.
Yeah.
For this, are we just focusing on schools' engagement in the traditional sense of, you know, visits? We facilitate the visits, or are we thinking wider? It's a school age range of young people in whatever engagement we have with them.
Yeah, I was thinking for this list, it was for me doing with the kind of education side, what I'm working with schools. So I'm aware that we do a lot of things not with schools, but with this age of young people. But I think at the moment, if we just stick with how we work with schools, because I agree that's another kind of whole area, but I've just been jotting down the extra things because I will add them in because I think that's important. So the reason why I'm
sorry, I was just gonna, just because you kind of crystallized this, you know, what we were talking about in the sense of the who.
Yeah.
It might be relevant just to link it to attainment somehow, just in the sense that their connection with the national parks and through the use of our engagement and education services. You know, that one of the outcomes we would be hoping for the young people overall would be that their visit has led to increased attainment, or, you know, another snazzier way of putting that.
Yeah.
Just so we're making sure whatever we're doing is relevant to their studies, their subjects, their curriculum, you know, and all the other stuff and the gambits that are going to get thrown at us to make connections to, whether it's,
I know.
you know, the nature parks, or, you know, whatever the new stuff comes out from either DEFRA or Scottish Government or whatever.
So kind of that bringing their learning to life, their outcomes, improving young people's outcomes in the broadest sense, I suppose, academic achievement and well-being, isn't it? Okay, great. I will add those things in.
I mean, it sounds almost like we've got kind of two tiers there, doesn't it? It's almost like, what outcomes do we want for ourselves? And then what outcomes do we want for our young people as well, really? So they could perhaps be grouped in two ways, because I think the list you've got there, that's more about sort of what we want, how we want people to engage with the national park, isn't it? And how we want them to value our resource and be better advocates and protectors of it, I think.
Yeah.
But I think those health benefits and those attainments are perhaps sort of what we want those young people to get. It's almost like the two-way side of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll offer you this
I
thing.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's a good point. I think split it up, because I think where I'm coming from this as well, you'll see that we'll talk about in a minute, but it's kind of like, you know, in our delivery. So for example, if we are delivering GCSE geography coursework sessions, are we meeting, if we go back to that list, are we actually meeting the outcomes that we want for us, or is it just we're ticking the schools boxes? So I think it's trying to explore some of the issues and things around that, is that which I think is what you're sort of saying, Andy, really, isn't it? We have outcomes that we're wanting, but schools and young people also have outcomes that they want to achieve, and it's how we make sure we pull them together and make sure we're both happy with what, you know, what we're focusing on. So I think what would be based on that then is I think it would be useful just to kind of go around the national parks and just to sort of quick jot down, because I'm scribbling away here as you're talking. What is your current offer for secondary schools? We're talking not just for secondary young people like young rangers and things, but things for schools. How, where, who do who delivers? Have you got a separate team who deliver that? Have you got a site that you use, or is it just generally out there? Do you charge? And I'd be interested to know how much partly because at the minute we don't charge, but we are looking at starting to charge. And I guess going forward, does there need to be some sort of consistency across national parks or not? Don't know. But I guess it's just starting to ask those questions, if that's all right. So chip in. I mean, I can start with the Yorkshire Dales. So for schools, our school offer it's kind of in two parts really. So there's the more sort of formal education side of it, is what I deliver, and that tends to be geography fieldwork. So we do a lot of sort of GCSE geography, rivers or tourism fieldwork. We also do kind of green careers days. So we've done a session with one school where we kind of it was a taster day on green careers. We've also done talks and things on green careers, assemblies, that type of stuff. And then Simon, do you just want to chip in and say a little bit about what you do, which is a relatively new thing that we've been starting to do with secondary schools?
Yeah, I've recently, just before the summer, we started offering a social prescribing type of experience that we could deliver to certain schools. We started that with a school local to us in Grassington, and we asked them to select I think it was up to 15 students that they thought would benefit from time out of the classroom. So we did that. It ran for 8 weeks, and the students had a whole Tuesday out with us in the national park doing various activities, be it volunteer task-based days such as clearing footpaths, days with bushcraft experience, hiking, farm visits, dry stone walling, all sorts of things, basically just getting them out of the classroom and experiencing the national park. And we finished that just before they broke up for the summer term, but then we continued it for a couple of weeks afterwards just to finish things off and wrap it up really, and it's been really successful. So there are plans afoot to carry that on with a couple more schools. It just seemed to really benefit students that were, I say, struggling in the classroom or just within themselves. So that's been something that's been really exciting that we've offered. And yeah, it's going to hopefully continue a bit more.
Yeah, and at the minute we don't charge, just come out with that for the moment. At the minute we don't charge for any of our offer for schools. But am I right, Catherine, in saying that you're thinking of future social prescribing programs, you're looking at maybe charging schools for that, or schools to find the funding from elsewhere?
A bit of a mix. Putting in grant applications, and some schools have said they would make a contribution from their pupil premium, so we're exploring possibilities at the moment.
Good, thank you. Okay, so that's kind of Yorkshire Dales, a little taster of what we do. Can we just go around the national parks and kind of just summarise, if that's all right? So Northumberland, could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so our secondary school program is something that we always want to develop more of, but just never seem to get the chance to. But so far, our main offer is centred around creative sessions and creative activities, and using the national park as inspiration to get creative. So we run a session called Inspired by Nature, where students learn about artists that have been inspired by the national park, and particularly Simon Armitage, the poet, who wrote some poems for Northumberland National Park about 5 or 6 years ago now, that feature in an app that you can download, and you can take trips around the different walks around the national park and hear the poems that he wrote in those locations. The idea being that the students then go out on a walk and they sort of recreate that and write their own poems. And that's been pretty popular. We also work or have worked quite a lot with Newcastle University. The library at the university have a remit to work with secondary schools, and we've partnered with them a few times to do a similar sort of session where they get students to come out and use the national park as a sort of stimulus for either creative writing or creating artworks and that sort of thing. And that's been, you know, pretty popular as well. And that's led on to having displays of artwork in the sill in our visitor centre. So that's kind of had a, you know, another benefit to us of having those displays of students' artwork as well. We also do career sessions, as you mentioned as well. We do go out into schools and deliver either at career fairs or events like that, or delivering talks as well. We don't get many requests from secondary schools for other topics, and I don't know whether that's a sort of chicken and egg thing, whether they're not requesting them because we're not necessarily promoting the types of things that we could do that much, or yeah, I don't know. That's something that we need to kind of look into it a bit more. As for who delivers, it's our staff that deliver. It's myself or Joanne. Or
we've occasionally had our tourist officer deliver some talks for tourism students as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Ranger team do get involved, as they do with the majority of our programme as well. And in terms of charging, we at Northumberland, we charge for everything. Apart from career sessions, we offer those for free, but everything has a charge attached otherwise. And prices range from about £90 up to, for like a full day out in the national park, up to sort of £250. So yeah, we do.
Do you charge per head, Rachel, or is it just a sort of dependent on group size?
No, it's more sort of a day rate or half day rate type thing.
Because they're paying for our time.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter whether you're with 10 children or 100 children, it's still your time.
Okay,
so I mean, it does kind of depend on the number of children. So for example, if you had a class of 30, you know, they would be coming out for a half day or a day, and they would pay that flat rate. But if a school, say, had 2 classes in the year group that they wanted to bring, and that was like double delivery time, then they would be paying more. More for that.
It's based on the staffing that you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the careers fairs, although they're free, we do ask for a donation towards travel costs, so they do get a nominal fee for that as well.
Yeah,
because sometimes, depending on where they are, depending, you know, how far we have to drive across, you know, Northumberland, and
so your creative sessions, bye Andy. Your creative sessions, are they kind of key stage 3 or older children? Who your target audience?
Yeah, mainly key stage 3. We have done it for older, but I would say it's majority key stage 3.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Has anybody else got any questions for Northumberland? No, it's good. It sounds really interesting. Exmoor? I'm not here. It's helpful. Dartmoor is gone. New Forest, not here. You must have got Loch Lomond, Ali.
So yeah, I think we are mainly the geography audience that you were referencing before. We have something called broad general education up here, which in high schools, that's 1st year to 3rd year, right? And then you go into senior phase, which is 4th year to 6th year. So sometimes they're coming out and they're bringing a group, you know, their class or 2 classes, you know, or they want their entire 1st year, depending on the size. And they're studying land use conflicts, and they're using national parks as that context, as a protected area. So it's great because it's referencing, it's actually in the curriculum. Like there's exam questions referencing, you know, land use and visitor management solutions in national parks. So it's very popular, and we get a lot of schools that know, you know, what they can get, and they come back year on year because of that. We don't get as many of the senior phase, but when we do, it's a bit more bespoke, because it's, you know, usually to support dissertation studies, or it's a bit more skills relevant. So sometimes that's a bit more, you know, something like maybe more path work, you know, or looking at individual case studies, and we do Mickey, things like that. So it's a bit more sort of hands-on. but we do a bit of work with sort of additional support needs groups in the high schools as well, particularly around or in the national park. We've only got one high school in the park, McLaren High School, but it's got a massive catchment. And so it's kind of a good relationship we've got with them. So they might come to us and ask us about support for one of their nurture groups or something. We'll just do that. It's all delivered really through our ranger service, and it's booked in advance. I get a program, a 6-month program of dates to book in schools in advance. So schools come to me, and then I can look at the diary and see where our availability is and book the schools in advance. So it's quite good. Kind of schools know the process and so on. I'm hoping to move to an online booking system next year, so that's kind of like we'll see how that goes. And we don't charge for anything, so we're busy because of that, and because the rangers do a multitude of other things. I don't have a particular education rangers or anything. It's just over and above their other duties, so I only get 2 days a week in the main visitor season to book in, and I get 2 rangers for each of those sessions. And then in the winter I get 3 ranger days to book, but obviously demand drops off a wee bit, so it's give and take. Where the peak, I would say, for secondary schools would be kind of like the post-Easter time up to our term finishes end of June. And then again, it picks up again, and they book in May, June for the September, October seat time, you know, and so they're coming out September, October, and November, and then it tails off again. So yeah, very, very, but I would say at one point pre-COVID, I would have said 60% of our engagement roughly would have been geography classes. Yeah. So it's, but depending on where they go, will depend on the program that they get. So it might be, you know, looking at honeypot sites and sustainable tourism solutions. It could be, you know, bylaw enforcement, camping management. It could be path work. It could be glacial landscapes. It could, you know, just depends on whereabouts in the park they decide they want to go. But we've only got one visitor centre, so, you know, if they want a wee bit of infrastructure, they go to Balmaha.
So have you had to do quite a bit of training with your rangers to enable them to be able to deliver all that?
Well, what we tend to do is we say to the rangers, ultimately they know the visitor management, because that's what they're doing, you know, every day, particularly in our park, it's visitor management, you know. And then you get pockets where they, you know, they've done it before, they've worked with somebody that's good at it, and pick it up. And if it's anything really, you know, we get the teachers to do, they're the experts. We just help them with the site in the national park context, and then we let them go off, particularly with the big groups. They do self-led, and we just round robin it. Everybody rotates round. So we're not expecting anybody to be, you know, some people are good at the geography, some people are good at the geology, but they're all just, you know, working as a team collective and sharing. And we do skill share sessions over the winter, so we've got a couple of them planned. We're trying to introduce climate and nature crisis messages, and even though it's making it connected to geography regardless, and that's been good. And also this year we've been doing water safety campaign assemblies and training, because we had a tragic suite of drownings last year, and we had about 6 drownings in one weekend. So that's been a massive campaign. So we've done bespoke assemblies, if you like, and sessions for secondary schools on that, and we do that in the run up to the holidays, so that they tend to hopefully all get it before, and then we'll pick it up again.
Okay, sounds really interesting. Anybody want to ask Ali any questions?
I'd love to hear how your online booking system goes, Ali. So keep us posted on that. That's exciting.
I will. It's within our license for 365. You can do an online booking calendar, but you can grey it out. Apparently, you know, so we don't accept them 4 weeks in advance, you know, so that we know we've got time to plan. And apparently, it will do all that. I'm meeting with the guy on Wednesday to talk through it in a bit more detail. Who knows? It'll be a transition. We'll see. I'll let you know how it goes. You might see me in Snowdonia cradling my head, you know, who knows? But if it's one less email I have to deal with, I'm happy, you know.
Yeah, good idea. So Amanda, can you talk us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we've got sort of slightly weird setup here because most of our work with schools, we refer to the learning network within the South Downs. So we are kind of a bit of a referral signposting role, but there are certain things where we do deliver with secondary, and we have a bit of a kind of niche on that where it links specifically to the role of national parks and, you know, conflicts in a national park. Anything with national parks voice at the heart of it is where we would go and do actual session delivery. So that tends to be for us more of the kind of GCSE and A-level BTEC type groups that come with that particular ask. So we do some delivery around that, including tourism type focus groups. But we also do quite a lot with work experience and work placements for students. We host about 15 work experience and probably about 6-7 placement students a year, particularly looking at sort of green careers. And then we also do quite a lot of work with schools and with our local education business partnerships on careers and STEM events. And latterly, we've been doing more eco events for secondary, where we're looking at things like climate action and renaturing and those practical action plans that schools can do. And then the last thing is really around the sort of nurture groups and also the holiday activity food programme groups, which is a bit of a mouthful. So where secondaries are requesting some additional support, particularly around health and wellbeing for their pupils, then we would offer sessions for that. Who delivers it? Well, it used to be me and Jonathan Dean, but seeing as we've now lost our education officer, it's just me, and we don't charge.
Right, okay. So your summer programme, is that part of that kind of healthy holidays or whatever they call it, the government funded?
Yeah, it's the government funded, and we basically go in and try and add value to those partners who are already delivering the whole programme, but we create opportunities within the national parks so that we can link sort of nature connection and wellbeing to that programme, which is quite cool. Mm-hmm. Only piloted it this year, so it's very new for us.
Yeah, okay, good. And things like, say, GCSE coursework and stuff, do you just signpost? Is that the sort of thing that would be signposted to your learning network? Yeah,
we're fortunate. We've got 150 organisations who deliver outdoor learning across the national park. So we have got a good online map. We did have a good online map. I broke it. It's very bad. We're fixing it. Once that's up and running, then we basically signpost teachers to that map, and then they can filter the different bits which they want to get, and it just signposts them, and they can then go off and make contact directly. So it's quite low maintenance, that sort of signposting.
So was it the national park that pulled that together, or is there another organisation that?
So it was our GIS colleagues pulled it together for us, and it was working amazingly. And then we changed our website and the whole thing broke. So we've got a new back end built, and ideally, I think what's going to happen now is we've got a Google form. So I'm going to send that round to all the providers, and then they populate that Google form, and we can just shift all of that data onto the map. So it is quite low effort in terms of getting that going, so hopefully that will be a good solution.
That sounds really good. Thank you. Anyone got any questions for Amanda? Ali?
It's a lot of work experience support. Do they go to all the different departments in the National Park Authority, and is it your job to coordinate that?
Yes and yes. And we also, with our work experience, we try and do inclusive work experience. So we work with some of our local special educational needs schools to create opportunities there. So lots of students come into our main South Downs Centre building because that's fully accessible, and that's a good hub within our comms teams and things like that. But our ranger teams are also great at hosting, so they tend to take 2 blocks each a year, and that's 2 students at a time. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Really cool. Yeah, really lucky.
Amanda, how do you what's the word, choose the students, because we've had students in the past that weren't interested, and we had to sort of filter them out. Is that something you have to do?
Yeah, we've gone like super militant with our work experience. It's hilariously funny. So we've set up an application form, but we've also got a work experience person specification like you do for job adverts. And it says you've got to be good at teamwork and you've got to be like interested in the national party. It's got really basic stuff on it. But the idea is we're trying to develop skills in young people in filling in job applications, so that this is part of that work learning experience. And then we will have a look at that. If it's not up to standard, we send it back and we mark it basically and say, can you resend it, but do these changes? And then if they do send that back, generally they really want to do it. And so then we go through to an interview, which is basically just a chance for them to meet the teams that they're going to be in. So there's no surprises there, but we don't turn people away at interview stage unless it's like really, really rare. And then that's it. So it's kind of like a little mini work, like a proper experience of applying to the world of work. But we found that that helps to filter out people who are just putting it for an easy ride.
Amanda, do you get a more diverse pool of applicants? Because one of our problems is we tend to get young people who've got massive amounts of parental support.
We get a really varied range of applicants. I would not say that it's a diverse range, Catherine, at all. The only thing that makes it fairly diverse is because we've got this kind of inclusive model of work experience. So we're targeting specifically young people who are outside of mainstream education as well. So it's kind of, that's a good way of getting slightly different folk in. So I had a young trans wheelchair user doing work experience on reception this summer, which was fantastic, but that wasn't going to come through our usual work experience programme. So that was kind of a targeted work experience. But yeah, no, we still don't get a huge amount of diversity coming through.
We don't even get girls, Amanda, so do you know? It's basic.
Yeah. Brilliant. Sounds really good. Loads of ideas there. Andy, can we head over to the Dartmoor?
Yeah, you can now. And I'm sorry I dipped out before. They've been digging up our road and changing the gas pipe, so they just chose that moment to reconnect us. So at least we're going to have heating this evening, so that's good. Yeah, so our provision is a bit more ad hoc, really. So we just have a general education offer out there, and that's primarily taken up by primary schools. You get occasional universities and secondary schools come for a specific offer, and then we'll just match them up with one of our volunteer guides. And in the past, Orlando would often take some of those groups as well. So this year we've got 3 engagement rangers who are working on the green recovery funding, and they've been specifically targeting secondary schools, and they've been doing a kind of mixture of going in and giving kind of taster sessions to schools in part of like maybe a whole day of round robin activities, and they'll be sort of one of the sessions within that. And they've also been doing a lot of practical sessions as well. So if I've just been looking at their calendar, and almost every day Emily's out with a year 7 group somewhere on the moor doing some practical conservation work. So that's mainly sort of what we're doing at the moment. Unfortunately, they're only here to the end of March, so I'm not quite sure exactly how we carry on in that model, really.
So do you get requests for like GCSE coursework and stuff, or do you bat them off?
Yeah, not so much. I think a bit like we were saying earlier on, actually, I think unless you're really sort of pushing that offer, perhaps people don't know quite what to expect from us. And that's something we've been talking about, Mel and myself, about being a bit more clear about what our offer is to schools. So rather than just saying we can do some school stuff with you, actually saying this is what we are. And it probably comes back to more those those outcomes that we talked about right at the beginning, actually, you know, we could bend over backwards to meet the national curriculum needs, but then actually, are we meeting our own needs as well? So that's what we're going to be focusing on over the winter, is actually tightening up what our offer is a bit, really.
Okay, brilliant. And do you charge for anything you do?
Yeah, so at the moment our secondary school offer, because it's more targeted and trying to reach that slightly more diverse audience, that isn't charged for, but our primary offer is charged, and I think that's £60 for half a day. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Andy?
Nice.
No? Got away with it. Okay, Heather, North York Moors.
So we have quite a traditional offer for secondary groups. So we do a river investigation at Danby, at our visitor centre. We also do a floodline investigation down at a place called Pickering that has been flooded in the past, that has slowing the flow measures now from a few years ago. So we do an investigation around that. We're doing endangered ecosystems. That was a request from a local school quite a few years ago. Not doing that so much now, but again based at Danby. We also do for A-level groups, we do a carbon day, and we also do Mickey. We do coastal field work at a place called Robin Hood's Bay. So we do a whole host of different things with quadrats and clinometers and measuring pebbles and all sorts. We're looking at the sea defences and coastal erosion. And we do, so that's the sort of the curriculum stuff. So all very traditional and all very much the school's agenda, because we have really high income targets. So we've been sort of forced down that line, really. So we do try and get some national park messages in as and where we can. And so they're all delivered by what we call education activity leaders. We've got 3 of them. We've got our education officer as well, Jonathan. And we do charge £8.50 for sort of 4 hours. If it goes over 4 hours, then it's £13.50.
Is that per head, Heather?
Yeah, that's per head.
Yeah.
And a lot of schools say how cheap we are, much cheaper than the FSC. So we found a lot of schools can't now go to the FSC because it's too expensive. So they come to us. So we do think about raising our prices, but we do have a really deprived area at Teesside. So we're always mindful with our charges about how much we're going to really, charge them. Anyway, then we've got Mary, our youth engagement officer, and she does a lot of secondary work, sort of practical conservation days, and what we call wild skills days. So they're more taught sessions. So the ranger days, the practical days, are kind of like volunteering, but obviously they're in school, so they're not. But they are free. But if they're having the more taught sessions, then they're £150 for a group, and a group is about 6 kids, might be 6 to 10, because they're focused on disengaged young people or pupil referral services. We're an approved activity provider for North Yorkshire County Council, York City and Stockton. So we're really, really cheap. £150 for 4 hours with them is really, really cheap. I think some providers would charge like £400 a child. So it's not all about the money. I have to keep telling myself it's not all about the money. So that we're fully booked for next year already with those. Really, really popular. We do have a transport fund. I know South Downs have a transport fund as well. So for those schools in the highest areas of deprivation, we will give them £250 towards the coach to come out to us and work with us, and then we get the fee from them for the actual activity. We used to do work experience, but we knocked that on the head a few years ago because it was just labour intensive. And we haven't resurrected that, and I don't think we are going to. We now direct young people into our Young Ranger scheme. We used to do loads on tourism, but we don't do that anymore because we're not getting inquiries for it. We might get the odd university group that maybe inquire about that. We used to do careers fairs, but we don't do those anymore because we've been so focused on income generation. But through the Generation Green project, we were able to do some more of those because it wasn't focused on income generation. And I think that's about it for secondary.
So can I just, to become an approved activity provider, did you have to jump through certain hoops to do that?
Yeah, there's a big form that we had to fill in. For some areas it was far simpler than other areas, but it was easy enough. It's not as onerous as Quality Badge that we just got renewed today, thank God. Oh my gosh, so much work. But yeah,
so it's specifically with North Yorkshire that you did that with?
Yeah, and York City, yeah, and Stockton.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions for Heather?
Yeah, oh, sorry, go on.
I think go Amanda. Yeah, that's fine. You ask, Amanda.
I was just going to ask, Heather, your carbon day for A-level sounds really interesting. Can you say a little bit more about that?
So don't do it myself. Yeah, so it's actually based on Mickey. It's very similar to Mickey, but I think there's just a few parameters that are a bit different to it. But sort of Mickey sort of fell off a bit, and we sort of redesigned it a little bit. But we don't get that many. What we actually do get is particularly A-level groups wanting bespoke fieldwork experiences for the young people then to generate their own inquiries. So we'll just do a general, here's all the fieldwork techniques, and we'll show them a whole host of stuff to do with rivers, to do with moorland, to do with peat depths, etc, etc. And then they might come back to us with a bit of advice, or can you tell us some places where we can go and do our own investigations? Okay. It's all on the website.
Great, thank you.
That sounds like a good, I like that investigation skills sort of day. I know Amanda, Norfolk Broads, is it Nick at Norfolk Broads does a upland, a peat day for A-levels, and he's got all the resources and everything. So I know he shared them before, so if you're needing stuff, that'd be a good place to go. Okay, any other questions for Heather? Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to my sharing thing. So can you still see my big screen? Okay, moving on. So what I did with kind of our provision, or my provision, I just thought it was quite useful to do some sort of SWOT analysis on it. So thinking about the pros and cons of our provision and what we'd like to be doing in the future. So this is for me doing it. Can I just check? Can you all see my screen? I've lost you all.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, God, thank you. So yes, strengths. So of what, all my sort of the GCSE coursework and things, that yes, it's meeting the needs of GCSE geography courses. It's very popular with teachers, and we're kind of modelling practice. Schools are also often want to come with us because of the voluntary support that we've got with our volunteers. And often I'm finding with secondary schools, one of their challenges is getting, that ratio, getting the number of adults out. So I think they find us really helpful because of our volunteer support. We are free, and also for us, it brings in contact with a large number of students. But I think for us, are we always getting our key national park messages across? I think that's perhaps quite questionable. Limited opportunity to connect with nature. We tend to end up with quite big group sizes, which can be a bit of a challenge, can be a bit repetitive for us, doing the same sort of things in it, you know, time and time again. And also, I mean, Malham, as if any of you have ever done, probably as in your youth, you might have come up doing your geography fieldwork up to Malham. Seems like everybody comes to Malham. So the same locations tend to be overused, and we're beginning to see the impact of that on the sites that we're using. But opportunities now, I think key thing, and I know Amanda and myself are going to be hopefully working on it with other people. I know a group on this for across the national parks. The new DFE climate change and sustainability strategy. Now, what is that going to mean for schools? What are the new opportunities we're going to have with secondary schools that we could perhaps exploit and kind of use, so it ticks their boxes and ours? Green careers, I think we've all sort of shared a bit about that, quite obviously a big area. And the new natural history GCSE, and what might our role be in that in terms of what we can provide and how we can support that. And obviously threats are around funding cuts for national parks, but also obviously for schools. So if we're starting to charge for schools, who is it that's actually paying it? Is it the parents paying? Are the schools trying to find it out of their budgets? Does that mean that there's going to be real big issues? And transport costs, can we continue to fund that in the future? So let me see if I can just go back to where I was. I've lost you all. Here we go. Yeah, back. Can you see me now? Are we back to our screen with everybody? Or I'm just checking. Yeah. You know, you never quite know what everybody else can see. So just thinking about that, I mean, does that kind of align with what other people are thinking about where we're going in the future, about those opportunity areas and what we need to do? You're nodding heads. So Amanda, is it worth saying anything about, so the whole climate change sustainability strategy, we did have a short session, didn't we, at the conference about that? But I know there's a small group of us going to be working together on what's our response. But it seems sensible that if all the national parks are going to be trying to provide something for schools, that we work on something together, that we're all, rather than all going off and doing our own little thing, that we have some joint, I don't know, whatever it might be, sessions and things that we could plan that all of us could potentially deliver. Any thoughts? Chip in.
I suppose my first thought is that this is England only. So
yes,
although I think it's going to be really helpful, like Generation Green, it'll be great to collaborate on resources, but I think we can not be limited by the fact that this is all for the strategy, because obviously, Ali, you were describing content for GCSEs, which you're supporting, which, you know, would have equal relevance for teachers, you know, regardless of what curriculum you're following, because it's linking the national park landscapes and all of the bits around sustainability. So maybe we could host something like we did with Generation Green, but with resources from across the national park family for this, is my kind of first thought.
Yeah, we have something called Learning for Sustainability in Scotland, which you may have heard of, and that's an entitlement for all pupils. So it's an umbrella term, if you like, that covers outdoor learning, global citizenship, sustainable development, education, and play, which is really important because, you know, play's approach through early learning and beyond. So, you know, as organisations in the public sector, we work with our curriculum bodies called Education Scotland and the Scottish Government really closely, and so we're all signed up to deliver what's called the Learning for Sustainability Action Plan. And then there's the resources and there's a hub and there's training and all the rest of it that comes out of that. So, you know, definitely happy to fire over bits and bobs whenever, you know, you come to those different stages, you know, whether it's the training or it's the resources or it's, you know, whatever else. It's still a work in progress with regards to initial teacher education. It's certainly embedded more now, but what we've been trying to do with the organisations through the Scottish Government environmental sector, so for us Nature Scot, which would be natural England, I guess, and forestry and cairngorms and so on and so forth, is to get in with the lecturers for the initial teacher education that are looking at those topics, so that we can start to help the newly qualified and do that. But GTCS Scotland, so the General Teaching Council for Scotland, they now have a Learning for Sustainability Hub. So you have to show that you're delivering this to be reaccredited as a teacher. So we're trying to bring in all the different strands to it, so that it's, it will fully embody an entitlement for 3 to 18 and, and beyond. So bringing in the college and university sector. So I'm happy to chat away and fire you stuff as and when you need it.
That sounds really good. And what about Wales? Do we know what's happening? Is there a similar agenda in Wales? Does anybody know? Heather, do you know? No. I'm assuming there will be, but it's kind of linking it all up, isn't it, really?
It's fab though, because exactly what you've just described there, Ali, is what the Department for Education's put in its new strategies. Like, that's a good idea. Let's do all of that stuff in England. So as always, we're behind the curve and very happy to share your knowledge on this.
I have a feeling that they've got I have a feeling that they've got something similar in Wales, because I know they've been redesigning the history curriculum and they've been consulting museums about it. So I think they've been doing something similar and redoing their curriculum, but I don't know for certain, but I think it is something like that.
Brilliant.
They
Thanks,
haven't they? Because Tom's always talking about the broader links with their curriculum, and it sounds very similar. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, no, it just sounds so well organised, really, doesn't it? And the fact that it's an entitlement, isn't it? It's just, the language is really strong. So Amanda, it sounds like we just need to invite Ali to our first meeting and she can tell us what we need to do. But yeah, it seems an obvious way ahead for me that obviously that for our secondary group, our delivery that's a really big focus. I mean, I suppose the other area, green careers, and you might have done this previously, so apologies, sharing resources. Have you done any kind of resource sharing across the team on green careers?
I don't remember that we have, Rebecca.
Because we've developed we've got a set of films now and quite a few resources and bits and things that we've got that we can share with schools. But again, it might be, rather than all of us independently having to reinvent the wheel, maybe on Basecamp, should we set up a green careers area to put some resources and a bit of a dumping place?
So, for the conference, we had that table, the big table that we were all filling in, which was on all of our different types of engagement. There was a page on there, wasn't there, on green careers?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether we could use that as a starting point, and then, like you say, a Basecamp area for storing all of those resources that we're happy to share would be a good idea.
Yeah. So did Mary Jane take those lists away, Heather, or was it Al?
Mary Jane has them all, and I think she has put them all into one document now. I don't think she's put them on Basecamp, but I shall ask her what's happening with them.
Okay, brilliant. So that would be a good starter for that. And then the other one is the natural history GCSE, which I know we're kind of awaiting to hear more at the minute, really, aren't we? We're at that stage. But when that does come out, it seems to me that would be a really amazing opportunity for all of us. And presumably that is, do the GCSEs offer Wales as well? I'm being ignorant here, aren't I? Is it for Wales as well? Are they a separate curriculum? I know it won't be for Scotland,
isn't it? It's the only exam board that's doing it at the minute, OCR. So I guess it depends if they're used.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we need to ask our Welsh colleagues about about what they're doing on that. But yeah, okay. So again, our secondary group, I guess we'll probably pick that up once we know a bit more about it, won't we? Okay. Time is clocking on. I just wondered, has anybody got anything else that they want to share? Anything on secondary stuff at the moment before we kind of move move on. Any other questions that you want to ask, or kind of actions that you think would be useful to take? So let me share. Let me go back to share my screen again. See if I can do it properly this time. So I was, oh no, not that. So I was thinking kind of action planning wise, we talked about the kind of the green careers and online resources. I was also wondering about this, that well, certainly for us, that I'm kind of moving now, and rather than sort of just delivering GCSE sessions for schools, it's how can we train up staff? How can we train up the teachers who, I think what I'm finding is that some particularly young secondary geography teachers, for example, haven't got that confidence in delivering field work. And some of that is because maybe they started during COVID times, or they just haven't had that practical experience. So can we be offering teacher training to support them? I mean, maybe it's a bit like, I think, was it yeah, Heather, you talked about your investigation skills for students. It's almost like doing a bit of that for your teachers as well. So I wondered if that's a possibility. Also, whether pulling together a sort of delivery package around climate change champions or something like that for Key Stage 3, maybe an online lesson or a lesson that could be delivered in schools, something around that. And then social prescribing was the other one that we've kind of been mentioning today. I don't know whether any other national parks are heading down that group. I suppose it's a bit like we talked about nurture groups and so on. But so any thoughts on that as a kind of action plan? Do we need other things in there for that kind of our secondary group? Chip in.
There was a bit of chat on the Basecamp group at one point when I think there was about workshop delivery at a like geography teachers conference. I forget what they're called.
Oh yes.
Apologies.
Yeah.
We've got a Scottish version called
Yeah.
SAGIT. It's not the great acronym.
Yeah.
I've tended to go to them in the past when I've got case studies. So we've produced a suite of case studies online so that schools can learn about the national park but don't need to come out to visit. But if they've used them, obviously they can follow it up, you know, with practical sessions with the rangers. And, you know, whenever we've had resources and stuff, we've gone to those conferences, we've promoted them, we've chatted to the teachers, and then, you know, said like, come out, we'll work with you. Or we've worked with Education Scotland through their social studies leads, and then hosted teacher training sessions like at weekends or twilight sessions to come out, so that, you know, then they know about the park, they know they can come out and learn or use it. They've got the resources. At the moment I'm working on self-led guidance. So just as you're saying, some of those teachers that might not have the confidence, and if they can't get access to a ranger because it's already booked up, then they might not come or they'll delay. But what I'm trying to promote now is, you know, look, come out and use the site. Just tell us you're using it, just if there's another school booked in, blah, blah, blah. But equally, things to think about, you know, what health and safety measures you need to take in, you know, how would an itinerary, how would you run a day, you know, just to try and talk them through and give them those skills. So I'm hoping to develop that over the winter, and then it might be that I need to do a bit of a promotion, but that's what's tended to work for us, you know. And I now need to probably audience prioritize, which is going to be a bit of a headache. So those that are coming out constantly, you know, I'm like you kind of know what to do now. You know, we can do a wee half-hour chat to you, but, you know, just to update you on some of our key work, but you don't need us to lead your whole session. So that's probably going to be, because it is a bottleneck, you know, at certain times of the year. So a bit self-led, a bit of, you know, hopefully prioritising, you know, and then we'll see where it leads us next year.
Yeah, brilliant. I think we're at the same point about that kind of, supporting schools that keep coming out with us so they can do it for themselves. But yeah, I think Helen's going to the conference, isn't she? The GA conference. I don't know whether, do you know, have we got a stand at the GA conference? Are they just running a workshop? Because I'm just wondering whether we could, you know, promote more generally what all national parks are doing at the conference. I don't know whether anybody knows. No. Okay, I'll get in touch with Helen and find out a little bit more about whether that's a route through. any other thoughts on this? I'll add in some of the other things that we've sort of discussed today, but this might be a kind of list that we pick up, Amanda, in that kind of group that we are meeting together to kind of talk about the new strategy, but it might be some of the things that we want to address as part of that, if that's all right. Okay, so just wanted to finish up today with just a little bit about when our next session is. So I've been talking to Mary Jane this morning about this, and I think we're quite excited about what we're trying to achieve. So it's going to be an evening slot, sort of 7 till 8:30, and on Zoom. And we want to invite 2 young people from each national park to attend. So maybe the young people that went to the conference last year. So that kind of people in your park who are kind of the advocates for Youth Voice, who are really wanting to get involved. So the idea, 2 people from each national park, and ourselves would be there, and it's across the whole learning and engagement team. So not just the people who are working with schools, people working with any children and young people, but kind of really discussing how we can better meet the needs of children and young people and have greater impact. How can we involve young people in the planning, delivery and evaluation of our work, but also having lots of breakout rooms and discussions on kind of key themes that we want to get them to talk about. So hopefully us learning from them about the stuff that makes the biggest impact, and then moving towards this kind of collaboration, co-construction, those keywords, about how we move forward in our delivery and what our offer is for young people. Just think it might be quite a nice opportunity to bring everybody together to have those conversations. So I will click out of that so I can see you all again. Okay, any comments, thoughts, final words before we say goodbye today?
I was just going to ask about that session on February.
Yeah.
You said you're going to have breakout rooms to talk about this, that and the other, but are you going to do some work before then, so you know from the young people what they're interested in? Yeah,
so the plan is 25th of January, I think we decided, that hopefully we're going to get Al involved as well. So it'd be Al, Mary, Jane and myself to meet as many of those young people that can do a sort of 7 to 8 o'clock session. So it's like 2 weeks before. So a bit of time to kind of discuss, raise some questions, give them some time to think about it and so on. Yeah, that's the plan. So I think Mary Jane will be contacting national parks to say, this is the proposal and who do you want to nominate to come along? And then she'll work on the young people side and I'll get our side of people involved to come. But I think it's just important, isn't it, that we've got lots of representation across all national parks would be really good. Okay.
That's great timing. We've got our youth committee meeting on Thursday this week, so I will plant that seed.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So that's perfect.
I think, yeah, my understanding, because I wasn't there, but my understanding was that the when they did all meet last year in the Peak District, one of the outcomes, the things that they wanted was to have greater influence on other children and young people and what they are learning about the environment and so on. So it's kind of how they can influence things through us, I suppose. But also how can young people be involved in what we're doing as well, in the delivery and planning, evaluating side of it, as well as just receiving. And then we have another date in April, which as yet got no kind of key theme. So if anybody's thinking, what would be the topic that we could have for that'll be like 3:30 to 5 o'clock session.